K9 German Shepherd recognizes his owner after 20 years. What happened next shocked everyone. Jack Thompson sat alone in his small living room, surrounded by memories. Old photos hung on the walls. Most of them showed him in his police uniform with his K9 partner. Max, a strong German Shepherd, had been more than just a dog to Jack. Max was his partner, his protector, and his friend. They had worked together for many years, handling tough cases and dangerous situations. But all those memories came with a heavy heart. There was one day that Jack could never forget. It was a day filled with chaos and noise, ending with the disappearance of Max. Jack remembered it clearly. They were on a mission trying to stop a dangerous criminal. Everything was going according to plan until the unexpected happened. A loud explosion shook the ground, and smoke filled the air. In the confusion, Max disappeared. Jack searched desperately for him, calling his name over and over. But Max did not return. The team later declared Max missing, presumed dead. Jack was heartbroken. It was like losing a part of himself. Years passed, but Jack could not let go of the past. After retiring from the police force, he tried to find peace, but it was difficult. His home felt empty without Max. Jack often found himself looking at old photos and thinking about their time together. He missed the sound of Max's paws on the floor, the way Max would wag his tail when he came home, and the comfort of having Max by his side. To keep himself busy and ease his loneliness, Jack volunteered at a local dog shelter. He spent his days taking care of dogs, feeding them and cleaning their kennels. The work was hard, but it gave him a purpose. He enjoyed his time with the dogs, even though none of them could replace Max. The shelter was a small, busy place, filled with barking dogs and the smell of wet fur. Jack found it comforting in a way. It reminded him of the good times with Max. One day, as he was finishing his work, Jack heard a bark that made him stop. It was a sound he knew too well, a sound he thought he would never hear again. His heart raced as he turned to see where it came from. In one of the kennels, he saw a German Shepherd with a familiar look. The dog stood still, staring at him with intense eyes. Jack's mind raced. Could it really be Max? The thought seemed impossible. It had been so many years, and Max was declared gone. But something about the dog's gaze made Jack hope. Jack approached the kennel slowly, his hands trembling. The dog moved closer to the bars, sniffing the air. Jack's heart pounded as he crouched down, trying to get a better look. The dog had scars on its body, signs of a hard life. But there was something in its eyes that Jack recognized. A spark of intelligence and loyalty that only Max had. Jack reached out, and the dog licked his fingers gently, just like Max used to do. Emotion overwhelmed Jack. Could this really be Max? He felt a mix of hope and disbelief. He had to be sure. The shelter staff came over, curious about the scene. They told Jack that the dog had been brought in a few weeks ago. He was found wandering the streets, with no collar or microchip. They named him Rocky and assumed he was abandoned. Jack's mind raced with questions. Where had Max been all these years? How did he survive? The staff watched as Jack interacted with the dog. They saw the connection between them, the way the dog responded to Jack's voice. It was clear that this was not an ordinary reunion. Jack's heart told him it was Max, but he needed proof. He asked the staff about any identifying marks or features. They mentioned a scar on the dog's leg, which matched one Max had from an old injury. This gave Jack more hope, but he wanted to be absolutely certain. Jack decided to take things slow. He spent more time at the shelter, visiting the dog he believed was Max. Each visit strengthened the bond between them. The dog responded to commands that only Max would know. Jack felt a sense of joy he hadn't experienced in years. The possibility of having Max back filled him with happiness and relief. Despite his growing belief, Jack remained cautious. He knew he had to confirm the dog's identity more formally. He planned to look into old records and get a vet's opinion. But in his heart, he already knew. The way the dog looked at him, the way he reacted to Jack's presence, told him everything he needed to know. As Jack left the shelter that day, he felt a weight lift off his shoulders. The thought of having Max back was like a dream come true. He couldn't wait to bring him home, to rebuild the life they once had. It would take time and patience, but Jack was ready. He looked forward to the future, hopeful and determined. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with questions and challenges. But Jack was not alone anymore. He had Max by his side just like in the old days. Together, they would face whatever came their way. Jack knew it wouldn't be easy, but he was ready for the journey. With Max, anything was possible. This unexpected turn of events was just the beginning. Jack felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was determined to uncover the truth about Max's disappearance and what happened in those missing years. With Max back, Jack's life had new meaning. The bond they shared was unbreakable, and Jack would do whatever it took to protect Max and give him the life he deserved. As he headed home, Jack thought about the future. He imagined long walks in the park, playing fetch and quiet evenings together. These simple moments, once lost, now seemed within reach. Jack smiled to himself, feeling a warmth he hadn't felt in a long time. The past might have been filled with pain and loss, but the future looked bright. Jack and Max were together again, ready to start a new chapter in their lives. Jack could not shake the feeling that the German Shepherd he found at the shelter was indeed Max. The dog reacted to him in ways that only Max would. But to be sure, he needed proof. Jack decided to dig into the past and uncover the truth. He knew this journey would not be easy, but he was determined. The first step was to gather information. Jack went through his old police records and found the incident report from the day Max disappeared. It was a detailed account of the mission that ended in chaos. The report stated that Max was last seen near the explosion site. After that, there was no trace of him. Jack read through the words, hoping to find something he had missed before. He noticed a few things that seemed strange. There were gaps in the report, parts that didn't add up. It mentioned a search effort, but there was no follow-up on what happened after. Jack wondered if there had been a cover-up. It seemed unlikely, but he had to consider every possibility. Jack decided to reach out to his former colleagues at the police station. Some of them were still there, and he hoped they could provide more details. He made a few calls, but most of his old friends were skeptical. They believed Max was gone and thought Jack was chasing ghosts. This was discouraging, but Jack refused to give up. One evening, while at the station, Jack met Emily, a young officer. She had heard about Jack's story and was intrigued. Emily was new to the force and eager to help. She believed in Jack's cause and offered her assistance. Jack was grateful for her support and accepted her offer. Together, they went through the records again. Emily had access to files that Jack didn't, which helped their investigation. She noticed something Jack had overlooked. There was a report of a German Shepherd being sent to a K9 training facility shortly after Max's disappearance. The dog had a different name, but the timing and description matched Max. This was a significant lead, so Jack and Emily decided to visit the facility. They wanted to see if they could find any more information. When they arrived, they were disappointed to find it abandoned. The place was empty, with no signs of recent activity. It was a dead end, or so it seemed. As they searched the area, Emily spotted a dusty surveillance camera above the entrance. If it still worked, it might contain footage from the past. They managed to access the recordings, and what they saw shocked them. The footage showed a group of men taking a German Shepherd that looked just like Max. The dog had a distinctive scar on its leg, identical to one Max had. This was the confirmation Jack needed. The sight of Max being taken away filled Jack with anger and determination. He knew they were on the right track, but there were still many unanswered questions. Who were these men and why did they take Max? What happened to him during all those years? Jack and Emily decided to dig deeper. They needed to find out more about the facility and the people involved. Emily used her contacts to gather information. She discovered rumors about a network that used former police and military dogs for illegal activities. This network was known for its secrecy and danger. Their investigation took them into the world of underground dog fighting rings. These rings were brutal and inhumane, exploiting dogs for profit. Jack felt sick at the thought of Max being part of such a world. He needed to know if Max had been involved and, if so, how he escaped. Jack and Emily decided to go undercover. It was risky, but they had no choice. They needed to infiltrate one of these rings to gather evidence. They prepared carefully, knowing the dangers they faced. Jack was nervous but also determined. He had to know the truth about Max, no matter the cost. The night of the operation, Jack and Emily entered the world of underground dogfighting. The atmosphere was tense, filled with noise and chaos. They kept a low profile, observing everything around them. It was a world of cruelty, where dogs were treated as mere objects. As they moved through the crowd, Jack's heart ached. He thought about Max and what he must have endured. Despite the grim surroundings, there was hope. They were closer to the truth, and Jack felt a renewed sense of purpose. During their mission, they stumbled upon a handler who seemed to recognize Max. The man was shady and tried to claim the dog. This encounter confirmed their suspicions. Max had indeed been part of this world, but he had escaped. The handler's reaction was proof enough. A tense standoff ensued, but Jack and Emily managed to escape. They knew their cover was blown, and they were now exposed. The people running the ring would see them as a threat, but Jack was not afraid. He had come too far to turn back now. Emily's research revealed more about the handler. He was part of a larger network involved in illegal dog trading. Max was one of several dogs taken for their skills. The realization hit Jack hard. Max had been used and exploited, but he was a survivor. Jack's respect for Max grew even more. Determined to bring the truth to light, Jack and Emily continued their investigation. They knew they were up against powerful forces, but they had to keep going. The evidence they had gathered was crucial, and they needed to act quickly. The journey was far from over, but Jack felt a sense of hope. He had found Max, and together they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. The bond between them was stronger than ever, and Jack was ready to fight for justice. As they left the underground world behind, Jack thought about the future. He knew there would be more obstacles, but he was not alone. Emily was by his side, and Max was waiting for him. Together, they would uncover the truth and ensure that no other dogs suffered as Max had. With renewed determination, Jack looked forward to the next steps. The path was uncertain, but he was ready. Max was back in his life, and Jack would do whatever it took to protect him and bring those responsible to justice. Jack and Emily knew they were getting close to something big. The evidence they found was pointing to a network of underground dog fighting rings. Max had been part of this cruel world, and they needed to uncover the full extent of it. They were determined to stop those responsible and ensure no other dogs suffered like Max had. Their investigation led them to a series of leads. They followed every clue, piecing together the puzzle. They learned about a network that trained and sold dogs for illegal fights. These dogs were often former police and military dogs, prized for their skills and loyalty. It was a dark and dangerous world, but Jack and Emily were determined to bring it down. One day, while reviewing their findings, Emily received a tip. There was a fight scheduled at an undisclosed location, and it was rumored to involve a high-profile handler. This was the break they needed. If they could gather evidence at the fight, they could expose the network and bring it to justice. Jack and Emily prepared for the operation. They knew it would be dangerous, but they had no choice. They needed to act quickly before the ring moved locations. They gathered their equipment and planned their approach carefully. They were ready to face whatever came their way. The night of the operation, Jack and Emily arrived at the location. It was a secluded warehouse, hidden from view. The atmosphere was tense, with people milling about, placing bets, and cheering for the fights. Jack felt a mix of anger and determination. This world was ugly and cruel, but they were here to put an end to it. As they moved through the crowd, Jack kept a low profile. Emily stayed close, her eyes scanning the room for any signs of trouble. They needed to find the handler and gather evidence without being noticed. The noise and chaos made it difficult, but they were focused on their mission. Suddenly, Jack noticed a familiar figure. It was the handler who had recognized Max. He was standing near the ring, talking to a group of men. Jack's heart raced. This was the moment they had been waiting for. They needed to get closer and capture evidence of his involvement. Emily signaled to Jack, pointing to a camera she had hidden in her bag. They needed to record the handler's actions and gather proof of the illegal activities. Jack nodded, understanding the plan. They positioned themselves near the ring, trying to blend in with the crowd. The fight began and the noise level increased. People cheered and shouted, placing bets on the dogs. It was a brutal scene, one that made Jack's stomach turn. But he remained focused, watching the handler's every move. He could see the man directing the fight, his actions confirming his role in the network. As the fight continued, Jack and Emily recorded everything. They captured footage of the handler, his interactions, and the dogs involved. It was dangerous work, but they knew it was necessary. They needed to gather as much evidence as possible to build a solid case. Suddenly, the handler seemed to notice them. His eyes locked onto Jack, recognition flickering in his gaze. Jack's heart skipped a beat. He realized they had been spotted, and the situation could turn dangerous quickly. They needed to leave, but not without the evidence. Emily remained calm, signaling to Jack that it was time to go. They slowly made their way toward the exit, trying not to draw attention. The handler was distracted, dealing with another issue, giving them a small window to escape. They needed to act fast. As they reached the door, Emily whispered to Jack, reassuring him. They had what they needed, and now it was time to leave. Jack nodded, feeling a mix of relief and urgency. They slipped out of the warehouse, moving quickly to avoid being followed. Once outside, they made their way to the car, hearts pounding with adrenaline. They had done it. They had gathered the evidence needed to expose the ring and bring the handler to justice. It was a significant step forward, but they knew the fight was far from over. Back at the station, they reviewed the footage. It was clear and incriminating, showing the handler's involvement in the illegal activities. Jack felt a sense of satisfaction, knowing they were one step closer to justice. The evidence would be crucial in building their case. Emily was equally pleased. She had been instrumental in the operation, and her efforts were paying off. Together, they presented the evidence to their superiors, who were shocked by the extent of the network. It was a major breakthrough, and the authorities agreed to take action. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. The police organized a series of raids based on the information Jack and Emily had gathered. They targeted known locations of the dog-fighting ring, determined to dismantle the network completely. It was a coordinated effort, involving multiple teams and resources. Jack was involved in the raids, working alongside his former colleagues. It was a challenging and dangerous task, but he was determined to see it through. They needed to stop the cruelty and bring justice to the dogs who had suffered. The raids were successful, leading to the arrest of several key figures in the network. The handler was among those captured, thanks to the evidence Jack and Emily had provided. It was a significant victory, but there was still work to be done. The head of the operation remained at large, and they needed to find him. Jack knew that the battle was not over. They had made progress, but the fight for justice continued. With Max by his side, he felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The bond between them was unbreakable, and Jack was determined to protect Max and ensure his safety. As the dust settled, Jack reflected on their journey. It had been a long and difficult road, filled with danger and uncertainty, but they had come so far, and he knew they could overcome anything together. With Max's loyalty and courage, Jack felt unstoppable. The future was uncertain, but Jack was hopeful. They had taken significant steps toward justice, and he was ready to continue the fight. With Emily's support and Max's presence, Jack felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was determined to bring the remaining figures to justice and ensure that no other dogs suffered as Max had. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that their bond could conquer anything. Jack and Max were a team, and they would see this through to the end. The fight for justice was far from over, but Jack was ready to continue the journey. The success of the raids brought a sense of relief to Jack and Emily, but there was still much to be done. The head of the illegal dog-fighting network was still out there. This person was the mastermind behind the operations, and they needed to be stopped. Jack knew that finding this individual was crucial to dismantling the entire network. Jack and Emily regrouped, reviewing the evidence they had collected so far. They needed to find clues that could lead them to the leader of the operation. It was like piecing together a puzzle, and every detail mattered. They knew the task would not be easy, but they were determined to see it through. As they dug deeper, they uncovered more about the network's operations. The network was vast, with connections in different cities. It was a complex organization, involving many people who profited from the cruel dogfights. Jack and Emily realized they needed a new plan to find the leader. Jack reached out to other retired officers who had experience with similar cases. He knew that teamwork was essential to achieving their goal. These officers had lost their K-9 partners under mysterious circumstances, just like Jack. They understood the pain and were eager to help. With the support of these officers, Jack and Emily devised a plan. They decided to track the flow of money within the network. Money was a crucial element, and following it could lead them to the leader. It was a risky strategy, but it was their best option. The team worked tirelessly, tracing financial transactions and analyzing patterns. They followed leads, no matter how small, hoping to find a break. The process was slow and challenging, but progress was being made. They discovered a series of suspicious transactions linked to shell companies. These companies were fronts for the network's operations, hiding the illegal activities from authorities. Jack and Emily knew they were getting closer. They focused on a particular company that seemed to be at the center of the network's finances. It was a crucial lead, and they needed to investigate further. The team decided to go undercover once more. This time, they aimed to infiltrate the company and gather information on its activities. They prepared carefully, knowing the risks involved. It was a dangerous mission, but they were ready to face whatever came their way. On the day of the operation, Jack felt a mix of nerves and determination. He knew the importance of their mission and the impact it could have. With Max by his side, he felt a sense of reassurance. Max was more than just a partner. He was a source of strength and courage. As they approached the company's office, they kept a low profile. The building was modest, blending in with the surrounding businesses. It was the perfect disguise for illegal activities. Jack and Emily entered the office, pretending to be potential clients. Inside, the atmosphere was tense, with people working at their desks, unaware of the team's true intentions. Jack and Emily observed everything, looking for any signs of illegal activities. They needed to gather evidence without raising suspicion. Emily, with her keen eye, noticed a door at the back of the office. It was labeled Employees Only, and something about it seemed off. She signaled to Jack, and they decided to investigate further. They needed to find out what was behind that door. They waited for the right moment, ensuring that no one was watching. When the coast was clear, they made their way to the door. With a quick glance around, Emily picked the lock, and they slipped inside. What they found shocked them. The room was filled with documents and computers, all related to the network's operations. It was a treasure trove of information, confirming the company's role in the illegal activities. They quickly began documenting everything, taking photos and notes. As they worked, Jack's heart raced. They had found the evidence they needed, but they had to act fast. They knew they couldn't stay long without risking exposure. Suddenly, they heard footsteps approaching. Someone was coming, and they needed to leave quickly. Emily grabbed the last few documents, and they made their way out of the room. They returned to the main office, blending in with the crowd. The tension was high, but they remained calm, determined to complete their mission. Once outside, they hurried to their car, hearts pounding with adrenaline. They had done it. They had gathered crucial evidence that could lead them to the leader of the network. It was a significant step forward, but they knew the fight was not over. Back at the station, they reviewed the documents and information they had collected. It was clear and incriminating, providing insights into the network's operations and finances. They shared their findings with the authorities, who were impressed by the team's efforts. The evidence pointed to a single individual, someone who had been operating in the shadows. This person was the mastermind behind the network, orchestrating the illegal activities from afar. The authorities agreed to launch an operation to capture the leader, using the information Jack and Emily had provided. The next few days were intense, filled with planning and preparation. The team worked closely with law enforcement, organizing a coordinated effort to arrest the mastermind. It was a complex operation, involving multiple agencies and resources. As the day of the operation approached, Jack felt a mix of emotions. He was nervous about the risks involved, but also hopeful. They were getting closer to justice, and he was determined to see it through. With Max by his side, he felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The operation was a success. The authorities captured the mastermind, dismantling the network completely. It was a significant victory, bringing justice to the dogs who had suffered. Jack felt a sense of relief, knowing they had accomplished what they set out to do. With the network dismantled, Jack and Emily could finally breathe a sigh of relief. The fight was over, and justice had been served. Jack reflected on their journey, grateful for the support of Emily and the other officers. It had been a long and difficult road, but they had prevailed. As Jack looked at Max, he felt a deep sense of gratitude. Max had been his partner and friend, standing by his side through it all. Their bond was unbreakable, and Jack knew they could face anything together. The future looked bright, filled with hope and new possibilities. With the fight behind them, Jack and Max could finally move forward. They had overcome incredible odds, and their journey had strengthened their bond. Jack was ready to start a new chapter, one filled with peace and happiness. With Max by his side, he knew anything was possible. The capture of the mastermind behind the dogfighting network brought a new sense of peace to Jack and Emily. They had worked tirelessly to bring justice, and their efforts had paid off. But Jack knew that one final piece was still missing. He needed closure. He had to confront the past completely to truly move forward. Jack had learned that while the network's leader had been captured, there were still remnants of the organization at large. One name kept coming up in their investigation, a former officer who had turned rogue. This person was believed to have been instrumental in stealing police dogs. Including Max, Jack knew he had to find this person to close this chapter of his life. Determined to finish what they started, Jack and Emily set out to track down the rogue officer. They had a lead on his location, a remote area where he was rumored to be hiding. It was risky, but Jack felt ready. He needed to confront this person to understand what happened to Max and why. They prepared for the mission, knowing it would be their final confrontation. Emily was by Jack's side, ready to support him in any way possible. Together, they formed a plan to approach the location carefully. They wanted to gather evidence and, if possible, bring the rogue officer to justice. On the day of the mission, Jack felt a mix of emotions. He was anxious about what they might find, but also determined to see it through. With Max by his side, he felt a sense of reassurance. Max had been through so much, and Jack was determined to protect him. As they approached the remote location, they kept a low profile. The area was quiet and isolated, perfect for someone looking to hide. Jack and Emily moved cautiously, scanning the surroundings for any signs of activity. They needed to be careful as they didn't know what to expect. Suddenly, they spotted a small cabin hidden among the trees. It was run down and weathered, blending in with the landscape. Jack felt a surge of adrenaline. This was it, the place where they hoped to find answers. They approached the cabin, keeping to the shadows. As they got closer, they heard the faint sound of voices. It seemed like the rogue officer was not alone. Jack signaled to Emily, and they positioned themselves to observe the situation. Through a window, they saw the rogue officer talking to another man. They appeared to be discussing something serious, their expressions tense. Jack recognized the officer from old photos, and anger welled up inside him. This was the person responsible for taking Max and other dogs, exploiting them for profit. Jack and Emily knew they needed to act quickly. They wanted to catch the officer off guard and gather evidence of his activities. They waited for the right moment, then made their move. Jack knocked on the door, trying to appear calm and collected. The officer opened the door, surprise flickering in his eyes. He didn't recognize Jack at first, but realization quickly dawned. His expression turned from confusion to anger as he understood why Jack was there. A tense confrontation ensued. The officer tried to deny his involvement, but Jack and Emily had come prepared. They presented the evidence they had gathered, leaving the officer with no room to escape the truth. He was cornered, and he knew it. The officer tried to flee, but Max sprang into action. With Jack's command, Max blocked the officer's path, his presence a reminder of the officer's past wrongs. The officer hesitated, knowing he couldn't outrun Max. In that moment, Jack felt a sense of justice. Max, once taken and exploited, was now playing a key role in bringing the officer to justice. It was a powerful moment, one that spoke to the bond between Jack and Max together. They had come full circle. With the situation under control, Emily called for backup. The authorities arrived swiftly, taking the rogue officer into custody. It was the end of a long journey, one filled with challenges and trials. But Jack felt a sense of closure, knowing they had done the right thing. As the officers led the man away, Jack took a moment to reflect. He thought about the journey he and Max had been on, the obstacles they had faced, and the bond that had grown stronger with each challenge. Max had been more than just a dog. He had been a true partner and friend. With the rogue officer captured, the case was finally closed. The network was dismantled, and justice had been served. Jack felt a weight lift off his shoulders. He could finally move forward, knowing that Max was safe and that the people who had hurt him were held accountable. In the days that followed, Jack and Emily wrapped up the remaining details of the case. They shared their success with the other officers who had helped, celebrating the victory. It was a moment of triumph, one that marked the end of a difficult chapter. Jack spent more time with Max, enjoying the simple pleasures they had once taken for granted. Long walks, playtime in the park, and quiet evenings at home became their new routine. Jack cherished these moments, grateful for the second chance they had been given. As he sat on his porch one evening, watching Max play in the yard, Jack felt a deep sense of peace. The journey had been long and difficult, but they had come out stronger on the other side. Jack knew that with Max by his side, he could face anything. The experience had changed Jack. He had learned the value of perseverance, friendship, and the unbreakable bond between a man and his dog. Max had saved him in more ways than one, and for that, Jack was eternally grateful. With the past behind them, Jack looked forward to the future. He was ready to start a new chapter, one filled with hope and happiness. Max was more than just a memory. He was a living testament to resilience and loyalty. Together, they faced the world, ready for whatever lay ahead. Jack knew that as long as they were together, they could overcome any obstacle. The bond they shared was unbreakable, and their journey was far from over. With Max by his side, Jack was ready for whatever the future held. With the case finally closed and justice served, Jack felt a sense of freedom he hadn't experienced in years. The weight of the past had lifted, and he could now look to the future with hope. Max was officially retired from service, and Jack was determined to give him the peaceful life he deserved. Jack decided it was time for a change of scenery. The city was full of memories, both good and bad, and he wanted a fresh start for both him and Max. After some searching, he found a quiet piece of land in the countryside. It was the perfect place to begin a new chapter. The move was a big change, but one Jack embraced wholeheartedly. The countryside was peaceful, with open fields and clear skies. It was a stark contrast to the noise and hustle of the city. Jack knew this was where they were meant to be. Max settled into his new surroundings quickly. He seemed to thrive in the open space, running freely and exploring the fields. Watching Max enjoy his new home brought Jack immense joy. It was a simple life, but it was exactly what they needed. Jack spent his days working on the land, making improvements to their home. He built a sturdy fence around the property to ensure Max's safety and planted a garden. The work was rewarding, and seeing the results of his efforts filled Jack with satisfaction. In the evenings, Jack and Max would sit on the porch, enjoying the tranquility of their surroundings. The sunsets were breathtaking, painting the sky with colors that seemed almost unreal. These moments of peace were a balm to Jack's soul, a reminder of how far they had come. With the move behind them, Jack turned his attention to a cause close to his heart. The journey to find and protect Max had opened his eyes to the plight of K9 dogs and the challenges they faced. He wanted to ensure that other dogs received the care and respect they deserved. Jack began volunteering with organizations dedicated to canine rights. He shared his story, using his experiences to advocate for better treatment and protection for these loyal animals. His efforts were well received, and he felt a sense of purpose in making a difference. Through his work, Jack met others who shared his passion. They were a diverse group, united by their love for dogs and their commitment to change. Together, they organized events and fundraisers, raising awareness and support for their cause. Max was a constant presence by Jack's side, attending events and meetings. He had become a symbol of resilience and hope, inspiring others with his story. People were drawn to Max, and his gentle nature won them over time and again. The work was fulfilling, and Jack felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was making a difference, and it brought him closer to the community. The friendships he formed were genuine and supportive, adding to the richness of his new life. As the seasons changed, Jack reflected on their journey. It had been a long and winding road, filled with challenges and triumphs. But through it all, the bond between him and Max had remained strong. They had faced adversity together and emerged stronger on the other side. Jack knew that he had been given a second chance, one that he would not take for granted. The future was bright, and he was excited to see what it held. With Max by his side, anything was possible. One evening, as they sat on the porch, Jack looked at Max with gratitude. The journey had taught him valuable lessons about loyalty, perseverance, and the power of friendship. Max had been a constant source of strength, and Jack was thankful for every moment they shared. The peace they had found was a testament to their resilience. They had overcome great odds to arrive at this point, and Jack knew they could face whatever came their way. With Max, he had found more than just a partner. He had found a true friend. As the sun set on another day, Jack felt content. The journey was far from over, but he was ready for whatever lay ahead. With Max by his side, he knew they could face anything together. Looking out at the horizon, Jack felt a sense of fulfillment. He had found his place in the world, and it was right here on this quiet stretch of land with Max by his side. The past was behind them, and the future was filled with promise. Together, they had faced the darkness and emerged into the light. The bond they shared was unbreakable, and Jack knew it would carry them through whatever challenges lay ahead. With Max, he felt complete. The world was full of possibilities, and Jack was ready to embrace them all. With Max by his side, he knew they could conquer anything. Their journey had been a testament to the power of love and loyalty, and it was a journey that would continue for years to come. As the stars filled the night sky, Jack felt a deep sense of peace. He had found his new beginning, and it was everything he had hoped for. With Max, he had found his way home.